Imagination exercises. I got 3 of them for you. They're really, really powerful. They're going to help you with your memory improvement efforts. And really, memory and imagination, they go together quite well. I think one of the most powerful things that you can do, though, is just dive in. Don't think about these exercises too much. Don't rationalize them too much. Just use them and see what happens for you. And that's all hinging on a very, very important principle, which is the DOC principle here at the Magnetic Memory Method World Universe headquarters in Brisbane. And DOC stands for doing is the origin of confidence, doing is the origin of consistency, doing is the origin of creativity and a creative imagination. So we can go on and on and on about how important doing is, but you know this. You've just got to dive in and you've got to do. And that's where it all begins. So if you'd like 3 exercises that will help your imagination absolutely pop, then this video is for you, and that's coming right up. Hey everybody, Anthony Metivier here from magneticmemorymethod.com, the website, the world, the universe devoted to giving you every possible advantage you could ever have when it comes to improving your memory. And I was asked recently by a person here on the YouTube channel about imagination exercises. You know, the #1 exercise of them all, this isn't included in the tip, but just so that you know, the #1 imagination exercise that you'll ever use is to simply learn memory techniques and apply them to information that you need to know, that you want to know, or just that's going to create some sort of improvement in your life. This is the #1 thing that you can do. A lot of people, they always put different things in front of just using the memory techniques. And that's always delaying the outcome of the memory techniques. It's always that way. And you know, we all do it. We all try to put in front of ourselves a number of tasks that are not the task, right? So we want to remember things better. Well, what better way to exercise your imagination than to just remember things better using these memory techniques? So what that means, in case you're new to memory techniques, and by the way, if you're new to this channel, hit the thumbs up button, let me know you're engaged. Hit subscribe if you aren't already subscribed to this channel, and just understand this, is that there's a fundamental aspect of human nature that is constantly trying to place obstacles in front of the goal. And your real goal is to get rid of the obstacles that are between you and the goal. So if you want to have the ultimate imagination exercise, make sure that you're using memory techniques. I like to start with the memory palace because we want to build from a solid foundation so we can build from the ground up. A lot of people, they prefer to teach memory techniques from the roof down, which is why things collapse really, really quickly for a lot of people. So this is the fundamental thing to do, is to actually learn the foundational principle of the memory palace. And the reason why is that it's using your spatial memory. It's the strongest free resource that we all have. We couldn't even possibly function if we didn't have spatial memory. It's equal to us all. There's no one who has some special spatial memory abilities more than anybody else. So it's amazing. It's amazing, and that's why we start there. And it itself is an amazing imagination exercise, because no matter how strong your imagination is now, you're going to be tapping into your ability to see in your mind's eye, or feel in your mind's body, or smell in your mind's nose, or hear in your mind's ear something about a space, be it your home, or your work, or a church, or a bookstore, or maybe this building back here, which, by the way, one of you, thank you very, very much, gave me a tour of that building because you work in there, and I really appreciate that. It's an amazing collection of memory palaces, especially the part where they store the bikes. Anyway, the whole thing is that no matter what your strongest imaginary mode is, and there are more than the ones that I just mentioned, your best bet, your best ever imagination exercise is to learn these techniques and to learn the memory palace, because it is the strongest basis upon which we can all start. We all have some access to imagining space in one of the magnetic modes. So the magnetic modes are vision, auditory, kinesthetic, olfactory, gustatory, and conceptual. If you want to switch those around, you can think of them as cog cave. So a cave filled with cogs. You can think of it as cave cog if you want. Just you're spelling cave a little bit differently here, K-A-V, or you could spell it cog with a K, K-O-G. The point is that you remember the letters C-A-V, K-O-G, or K-O-G, C-A-V, so that you can recall visual, auditory, kinesthetic, olfactory, gustatory, and conceptual. Those are the 6 major magnetic modes. There's a 7th, and that's called spatial memory, and it is basically a combination of all those things combined. So it is the one that binds them all. And your best bet, if you want to exercise your imagination, especially when it comes to getting better at memory techniques, is to make sure you've got that nailed with respect to the memory palace. Alright, so with all that said, the mega imagination exercise out of the way, and by the way, if you haven't taken my free course, go to magneticmemorymethod.com/YT, and it'll give you some worksheets for creating proper, well-formed memory palaces so that you actually build from the ground up and avoid all the mistakes that so many people make that lead them to years of struggle with these techniques. You don't have to struggle at all. You get it right the first time. So, imagination exercise number 1 begins with having a place where you do imagination exercises. So this is an important thing. Why did I come here today? I came here because it's one of my favorite places to come to exercise my imagination. So I like to come here to work on a bit of Chinese, I like to come here to memorize song lyrics, I like to come to this place, and it really is an imagination exercise to think of all the places you could go to isolate yourself from technology, to isolate yourself from interruptions, to get away from the digital amnesia, no devices, nothing that could possibly get in your way. Get yourself a little bit of coffee, if you like coffee, memory-friendly coffee, which means no milk, pretty much, and if you have some raw cacao or something like that, all the better. And when you're there, start to think of the place and your history there. It's an amazing imagination exercise to try to think through the last 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times you were in a place and what happened there. What were you thinking when you were there? What were you feeling when you were there? Did you notice anything about the people that went by when you were there? And you can really think about that. There's something called the 4 object exercise. So you know, there's certain people walking by now, and just quickly think about 4 details about them, and then ask later, what were those 4 details about as many people as you can. And if you do something like that, then you can go back in your mind and think previous 3 or 4 times what those things were. That's an imagination exercise, and you're asking yourself to imagine the details of the place, the details of the people that were at that place at that time. You can think of your own variations of how this all can work for you relative to how your imagination works. It's really very fun and very developing of spatial memory and object-based memory at the same time. So, for example, a person just walked by and I noticed that he had gray hair. That's one sort of detail about an object. That he had a bald strip here, that he was wearing beige pants, and that he had a, not really a plaid, but a lined shirt with open neck buttons. That's an imagination exercise. I'm just loosely thinking about that. Next time I come here, I'll come and think, okay, so what were the 4 details that I remembered about this guy? Very simple. And you know, you don't have to do it with real people. I recently just finished reading the book Ready Player One. Ernest Cline, I believe, is the name of the author, and I can think about 4 details about the hero, about the bad guy, about some of the hero's allies, you know, stuff like this, and go through it and think, okay, well, what are at least 4 things about that person? And that's an extra challenge because those people don't even really exist, right? So the brain had to encode whatever that information was about them in a different way. It had to create and do elaborative encoding rather, with things that you created yourself in collaboration with the author. Whereas when it's details about a real person in the world, you're in collaboration with a real person in the world. So it's a different set of brain chemicals going on. Anyway, that's exercise number 1. By the way, these exercises are in no particular order of importance. They're just there for you in whatever order you want to work on them. The second exercise that I would suggest is that you make sure that you are equipped with the major method or the major system, any kind of alphanumeric based way of transcoding numbers into sounds, which you can then turn into words that are images, so that you're able to remember numbers at a glance, because you, instead of just seeing numbers, you also see images. You see words and images. So that's a great imaginative exercise. Once you have the major method, then what you're going to do is you're going to have numbers that you work with. So you can just pick whatever numbers that you want to work with, and there's no hard and fast rule to what they're supposed to be, but there's many options out in the world. There's the birthdays of everyone in your family. There's the birthdays of every person that you work with. There's just endless birthdays that you could choose from. The birth dates of your favorite composers, favorite actors, favorite artists, and so on and so on and so on. And if you work with those, then you have endless imaginary exercises. The other thing that's related here, it's not really a separate exercise, but you can use a major method to memorize a deck of cards. There's a number of different ways to do it, which we talked about on other videos and so forth, but at the end of the day, a great imaginary exercise, imagination developing exercise, is just 5 to 10 minutes a day with a deck of cards. So how does that work? Well, you basically just pull out a deck of cards, you see the 2 of diamonds, and you think Johnny Cash. Why do you think Johnny Cash? Well, there's a reason for that, which, you know, is the topic of another video on another day. But you're using the major method, and that's why that happens. So that's 2 memory exercises for imagination and imagination exercises for memory in one. And the third thing that I would suggest is, when you have your major method going for yourself, you're going to essentially have a word. Ideally, if you build it out at maybe, say, an intermediate level, you're going to have an image for every 2-digit number from 00 to 99. And what you want to do as an imagination exercise is you want to make sure that each and every single one of those images is as plump and rich and detailed as possible, and go through it and constantly question, what could be better here? What could be better here? What could this person be doing? And so you want to avoid all vagueness. Now, you don't want to hum and haw and think too much about it when you're building your 00 to 99. You just want to get a working model going. And what that's going to mean, it's happened to me, it's happened to just about everybody under the sun, is that you're going to wind up having some vague images in there. Some of them you might pick and realize later, wait a second, that's not even an image at all, right? So what you want to do is you want to make sure that you're going through it and asking the question, how could this be better? How could this be more concrete? How could this be a better image that has some sort of action in it? So one example for me is 59, which I started out with leap. And I didn't know any better at the time because I didn't have this video. And by the way, thumbs up if you like this stuff. If you're not subscribed, subscribe, because there's a lot going on. And click that little bell icon so that you get notified when we do a YouTube live talk. And we have a lot of fun, and we want you there. We don't want to miss you. And so that's how you do that. You hit subscribe and you hit the little bell. Anyway, so I started with leap. And the reason why is because 5 is associated with L and 9 is associated with P or B. And so leap made sense to me. And it is something that you can kind of see. The only thing is, what is leaping, right? And so when you have, say, 5, 9 and 0, 6 at the end of it, and maybe 7, 8 at the beginning of it, then you're like 7, 8, 5, 9, 0, 6. So leaping is just now this abstract concept that comes between 2 other images. So what I ended up ultimately doing was thinking, no, I've got to get something else there. So I went to lope, which is maybe more a little related to werewolves, for example, and like from looping werewolves and so forth. Then they were leaping, and then I finally thought, no, I'm going to use Jennifer Lopez here. Now there's a bit of a problem there, which we've talked about in previous videos, but I don't make it a problem, so it isn't. But and the reason that is because that Z could create a kind of S in the major method at the end, but she can stand in for both, and because it's linked to a particular card, then no problem. But the whole thing is it evolves over time. Another one that evolved over time for me, oh, by the way, is that now Jennifer Lopez can be leaping with a loping werewolf. You know, like there's multiple options now. That's what I mean by making it plump and rich. And then the more connections you can make to surrounding numbers. Or if it's a password and it happens to have 59 in it, then you have more options for like capital V, asterisks, and so forth to interact the images together. And keep in mind, I use the word image, but you know, it can be an auditory image, it can be a kinesthetic image, it can be a smell image, and so forth. It can be a conceptual image. So, and it is a conceptual image when you think about the idea that from the origin of words, that loop, that sound can be connected to werewolves or wolves in general. Well, then you're using conceptual imagery there, and there's nothing really to see in the mind as such. So those are some tips for you on that. And so that's what you want to do, is you want to have this system in your mind and you want to keep on massaging it, keep on improving it. How do you improve it? Well, you improve it by always using your number system to remember numbers. Any number that you come across. I'm looking at the camera now, I look at the screen, I'm like 1 to 3, 5 to 5, 6. Well, why not take a moment just to memorize that stuff, you know? And when you're reading a book and you're like, oh, well, this movie came out in 1987. Well, remember that. Use some kind of image to remember that. I just had read in a book earlier today that it would take you 288 years to sleep in every bed in Las Vegas. I'm sure that there are a lot more beds in Las Vegas since that stat was recorded, but why not take a moment to just create an image that lets you remember that, right? So in this case, it was a Navy, a particular Navy soldier or Navy officer punching a snowman in a Las Vegas bed, right? Anyway, this is an ongoing imagination exercise, which brings us back to the beginning point, which is that the best way to get imagination exercises is to learn these tools, learn these memory tools, and then use them. That's the best thing, because they'll give you more than ample imagination exercise day in and day out with no end. And it's so healthy for your brain, it feels so good, and it creates this endless state of accomplishment. And the only thing that I would repeat, again, doing a little bit of spell casting here so that the points are remembered, is find a place where you can do these exercises without interruption. And what I will give you to help you remember how important all this is just think about Peach. Practice encoding at calm hours. Practice encoding at calm hours in calm places. And you'll have all the time and the space in your mind and the clarity and the focus that you need to just take a bunch of numbers or a bunch of playing cards and remember that information, knowing that it's not just about remembering the stuff, it's about the imagination being exercised and growing stronger and stronger and stronger. And you're making discoveries because you think of a number and you're like, 84, my image for that could be better. And then you make it better. And then you'll think of how you're going to remember what you did to make it better, because you're using it immediately, and then you're going to go back and decode that image and go, yeah, that is so much better. And you will discover so much through this application of multiple imagination exercises. And DOC, right? Doing is the origin of confidence with this. Doing is the origin of consistency with this. Doing is the origin of greater and greater creativity with this, and courage to get out there and actually use what you remembered in public when you're in a discussion, and you can say, no, absolutely, that movie was from 1987, or no, that was on page 72. It's really, really a great feeling, and it is one of the best things that you'll ever do, because it's just the beginning. If you're ever learning a tonal language, well, now you've got number images for those tones, and so on and so on. So imagination exercises, there are many, many more. If you haven't seen my videos on meditating and so forth, well, those are imagination exercises as well. They're imagining, in many ways, the state of what it's like to not have any thoughts at all. Happiness beyond thought, as Gary Weber called it in his book of that title. So watch those videos on meditation. It's a really, really great way to begin. And you know, there's so much more that you can do with your imagination, especially when you know about bridging figures, how to use bridging figures in memory palaces, how to have dual bridging figures, how to just constantly and continually improve your imagination through memory practice, and to continually improve your memory through the practice of your imagination. So that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed making it for you. And get out there, do some memory exercises. Let me know down in the comments below what you did with this information, what imagination exercises you use, and what imagination exercises that you think might be useful for others, and what imagination exercises you still would like to give a try to, or maybe push me in a direction, and I'll come up with something, because there's no end to this. There's absolutely no end, and things just keep getting better and better and better. The more you use your mind to improve your life, and then use your improved life to improve the lives of those around you. Because really, what else is there in the life to do other than that? Thanks again for watching this video. This is Anthony Metivier from magneticmemorymethod.com. Make sure you've taken my free course at magneticmemorymethod.com/YT and hit that thumbs up. Make sure you're subscribed. And until we have a chance to speak again, keep yourself magnetic.